Hello guys, today in this tutorial I will be talking about a special React.js hook which is very much important in building applications of React.js. So basically the hook name is UseRef. UseRef is basically a very special hook guys, so basically we have used this hook many a times. So we will be looking at a very simple example of UseRef. So for this video will also be useful for interviews as well guys. If you're going for a React.js interview, definitely watch this entire video to get the concept of useref. So first of all guys, I will take a very simple example. I will have a simple input field inside my return statement. So we will have a simple input field of type text, and this will be for simply here in this field you can enter the name, and I will simply attach a on change event handler to this input field. So whenever the value changes, we will execute a function, and for this guys basically we will be declaring some state variables. So declaring some state variables. So these state variables guys will be the hook variables. So this will be name, set name, and this will be, we will be using useState hook guys basically for storing this name variable, so it is automatically imported from React dependency, and this the initial value will be nothing, and we can even print out the value. So in a paragraph, so we can see the name of the person is, and then basically inside double curly brackets we can print out the name like this. So whenever the value changes guys, we will simply call this hook method here, which is set name. So this will have the e parameter, which is the event parameter. We will simply say e dot target dot value. That's it. So now what will happen guys, if you open the React.js application, so what will happen now, if you see closely here, so you will see that this is the input field out there, and basically if you see here, if I enter a name here, you will see automatically this name is printed out inside this DOM like structure. So whatever I type here, it is connected, it will print out live here. So as this input field is changing, automatically your DOM is re-rendering it. So React.js is re-rendering your DOM, so this message is automatically changing. So if I need to prove this guys, so basically I will use a simple use effect hook. Use effect always runs guys whenever the state changes inside React.js, so this function will automatically execute whenever your data changes or state changes inside your whatever this is, a use state changes, it automatically calls this method use effect. So this method will automatically execute, which is console log, and here we can console log the value. Let's suppose we can just console log the name value, and we need to give it a dependency which is name. That's it. So whenever this name changes guys, this input field, this name parameter changes, this use effect will automatically execute and it will console log the name value. So now basically if you inspect the element, if you go to the console here, so what will happen now here, as I write the value, you will see automatically in the console all the values are also printed out. So this use effect is automatically called guys. You can even write a message here, the name value changes. So automatically this, as you change your input field guys, automatically here the use state will change, and automatically this will trigger this function use effect. So it will automatically get called whenever this name parameter changes. So now if you see guys, there is a message which will be showing in the console. If you go to the console here, and if as I type the message, you will see that the name value changes. As you can see that automatically the name value changes here. This message is triggering it because this use effect function is automatically executing it. Now let me, using the same concept guys, let me print how many times the component has re-rendered in a numeric value. Let me take a very simple example. Let me show you. Let me take a counter variable, counter, and then basically the function which is used to set this counter variable. The initial value, let me set it to 0. So initial value will be 0, and automatically whenever we call this, we will print out this value inside a paragraph. So we can simply, the number of times component re-rendered, we will just print out. and we can print out the counter variable like this. So initial value will be 0, guys. You will see the number of times component has been re-rendered is 0. So as I type here something here, this value doesn't change because we need to increase this value. So normally what you will do, guys, non-experienced React.js developers, what they will do, they will again use the useState variable. This is a very big mistake that you can do, guys. It will trigger the infinite loop. You should not use the use state hook. Let me show you what happens when you use this very bad practice. So let me trigger this set counter, call this, and simply we will increase this value by 1. So as I just type this, guys, if I just type this, you will now see in the browser as I type this, and you can now see as I type here, guys, you will see it is showing me that as I type something, it is re-rendering it. It is automatically telling me this because I have binded this array variable like this. So as I remove this here, as I just remove this, I don't pass any sort of dependency. It will automatically execute any variable changes. So let's suppose this counter also changes. This will also trigger the change in use state, and then it will automatically execute. It will go into the infinite loop. You will see this is the infinite loop that I'm talking about. So if you check the console, guys, it will automatically tell you that you need to provide a dependency to this use effect. So you can see automatically this will go infinite loop. So you will see maximum update depth exceeded. This can happen when a component calls set state inside use effect. But use effect either doesn't have a dependency array or one of the dependencies changes on every render. So it is just telling it that now to stop this array, you just need to type a dependency array like this. So if you just pass it now, it will only execute for the very first time. So as you change this value, nothing will happen. If you change this to counter here, so we are just explicitly telling that whenever the counter value changes, we need to trigger this. So again it will be coming into a infinite loop. You will see that infinite loop will be there. So we need to prevent this, guys. This is a very bad approach. If you going for a React.js interview, if you follow this approach, you will never get a React.js job. So in this scenario, this UseRef comes into the picture, guys, in order to prevent this loop. So what we can simply do is that instead of use state, we can use UseRef. UseRef you can use. So automatically this hook will also get imported from React here like this. So here, guys, basically you can pass initial value which will be 0, and basically, guys, what will happen now, it doesn't have to be like this. You can just like this counter. So now if you just refresh it, what will happen now? Let me remove this now. It is saying set, sorry, just refresh it. As you can see, it is giving you this message because objects are not valid as React child components. So because this is an object, this is not a variable, this is an object. I can even prove it. If I console log counter, basically this is an object. If I check the console here, this is not a value, this is an object. UseRef returns an object. So basically you can again see here there is a property which is there. Let me remove this and again check the console. So you can see this is a object which contains only a single property. UseRef object contains only single property which is called as current, and it is initialized to 0. So whatever value that you pass here, either you can also pass a string value also, totally depends upon you how you want to pass it. You can even pass a string value. So now you will see that the current value is a string value. You can also pass a constant variable. Let's suppose I pass here John. So this can also be a string constant value, current John. So there is this current property that we need to manipulate, guys. So the initial value we will set it to 0. So we will manipulate the current value, guys. So we will simply say that counter dot current, and we will say that we will increment this like this. That's it. We will initialize counter dot current is equal to counter dot current plus 1. So again we will be rendering this variable. the number of time component re-render. So we can print it out this time, which is counter dot current. This is a property. So now this, if you execute now guys, basically as you type here, you can now see there is no infinite loop out there. Automatically if you type here, your it is exactly telling you the number of times component re-render. So you can see that in the console also current value changes here. So we are printing out the current value automatically. Whenever you change the DOM here, your component is re-rendering it, so it is exactly telling you the number of times the component has re-rendered, and this contains this current property which is automatically incrementing it, and we are printing it out. So this is the first use case where you can use the useref hook guys. Instead of using useState, instead of using the state variables, you can use this useref hook, because it is not calling use effect again and again, because this is not a state variable, this is not a state hook, it's a useref hook. It's a reference, it contains an object and it contains a property called as current. So here we are just increasing that property by 1 like this. This is a 1, so this is not calling useState. So whenever the value which is contained inside useState changes, it automatically triggers use effect. But in this case we are not using useState, we are using useref. Initial value is 0, so we are incrementing it by 1, so this comes as 1. So this updates here, this is 1. After again the value changes of name value changes, this again executes. So this also as you see guys, this also expects a empty array. If you pass an empty array, this will only execute for the very first time. So now if you type it, the value will not change. So here you need to provide the dependencies on which the use effect will execute. So whenever the value of name changes, I can simply provide the name. So let's suppose I have a second field out there for email address. I have a second email address guys. Again, this is for, let's suppose, set email, and here we will write the email address of the user. So this time this will be input type will be email. So we will have a second hook variable which will be for the email address. So we will simply say email set email, and again this will be a useState variable. Initial value is empty. So in this case guys, you are seeing we are setting the email address, so we are not passing this email here. So in this case what will happen now, if you just type the name here, then only the component will re-render. If you type the email here, the component will only render for the very first time, and after that it will not render like this. You can see that. So whenever the value changes for the very first time, then only it will execute. After that it will not execute like this. So this is the thing guys. If you pass the email as well, let's suppose if I pass the email as well, so both the fields we have binded it. Now if you change both name and email, automatically you will see. So this is the first use scenario guys. Instead of preventing that infinite loop, we use useref. This is the first scenario to render out this one. The second scenario is that guys, basically to access the DOM elements. So in order to access the DOM elements guys, we use some kind of thing called as document.getElementById query selector. You can even use a useref as well. So let's suppose I change this to input element, and I just type here, this will be empty by default. And there is a special property guys which you can attach it on the input elements in React, which is called a reference like this. So here we can pass your reference, which is input element, and also you can pass it to this one also, input element. That's it. And there we can have a simple button guys. So if I want to change the background color of this input field, so we can attach here change background color. You can change any CSS property of your choice, totally depends upon you. So whenever you click this button, what will happen here, we can simply say here input element, and we can simply get the current property, and then we can simply call some methods. You can even focus the input field. Let's suppose I need to focus the input field. So what will happen now, let me just delete this, I don't need this. So if you now see guys, it is saying counter is not defined. Let me remove that. So if you execute this guys, now what will happen, if I say automatically this get focused here like this. You can see, because we have attached to both the input fields, so at a time only one input field can be focused, so the second one is focused. So you can even change the background color as well, guys. Let's suppose I want to change the background color. We will say dot style dot background color, and we can change it to red like this. So what will happen, let me remove it from this one. So as you click this button, the background color will change to red like this. So in this way, guys, you can also use the DOM manipulation. You can focus the input field. So these are some use scenarios of UseRef hook. I think it's a very important hook. You should definitely invest some time to learn this for job interviews. If you want to become a React.js developer, then this hook is very much important. You should definitely invest some time. Many questions are asked of this hook. So if you have some time, definitely invest some time in learning this hook. I have shown you the two examples. The first one is very much important. You can need to prevent it from entering into an infinite loop, and also the second scenario, you can simply access elements DOM manipulation you can do using this useref hook. So that's the thing that you can do here. So now if you have any sort of question, guys, you can ask in the comment section. I will definitely reply to all the questions if you have. If you have any sort of questions, guys, I will try to explain all the doubts if you have inside this video. If you're watching it for the very first time, please hit that like button, subscribe the channel as well, and I will be seeing you in the next video.